The Hero's Journey, a Mindful Accord podcast, with your host, Rich Decker.
Hello and welcome to The Hero's Journey, a Mindful Accord podcast. This is a podcast where you can gain some strength for your hero's journey. Our guest today is Jason France. Jason is a fitness training expert and co-founder of Neuro Creamer, the cognitive coffee creamer which provides nourishment for your coffee and mind. He was a high school baseball phenom who was drafted by the Cincinnati Reds, but instead joined the Marines and became a critical skills operator, which is part of the Marine Special Operations Unit, also known as the Raiders. He's a fascinating person. This is a little bit from his Facebook page. Action. My actions and my actions alone demonstrate my value to the world. No one can read my mind or see my thoughts, but every one of you is affected by my actions, as I am affected by each and every one of your actions. My powers are, and forever will be, generated by a brilliance in the basics. Take away all five senses, and victory will still be mine. Refuse me the ability to stand, crawl, walk, or run, and I will succeed. Reduce my physical shape and size to that of a grain of sand, and I will triumph. This is the glory of an ultra hero. This is part one of our talk. There's more to come. And this is the hero's journey of Jason France. Enjoy. Thank you, Jason. Thank you for joining us on the show today. I'll ask you a question that I ask everybody. Tell us about your childhood, where you grew up. And for better or worse, what principles did your parents instill in you? And what do you still carry with you today, for better or worse?
I'm Jason France. Born here in Phoenix. Spent a good part of my youth here in Phoenix, up to 20 years in fact. Grade school, bit of college. Phoenix, went to Chandler High School, home of the Wolves, 98 graduate. And childhood was, I suppose, as regular as any kid could imagine. You don't know what regular is as you're growing up, right? You're really piecing a lot of moments together, build a framework of what life's supposed to be about. Looking back at childhood from a 36-year-old perspective, I was very fortunate, lucky to have grown up in America with clean running water, good sewage, waste management system, moving around the world, seeing a lot of the world. Most nations, most people on Earth don't have access to some of the basic facilities we have here. So my youth was great. It was wonderful. My parents loved me. They did everything within their power to ensure I had love, security, basic needs for human growth and development. Education was basic. I wasn't underprivileged. I wasn't overprivileged. I was straight and narrow. Father was a residential real estate agent and broker. Mother did a lot of work from home for the time that they were together. Not together anymore. They divorced when I was about 7 years old. Very regular. I mean, there's nothing abnormal. I had experienced some childhood trauma through the forms of familial death. Lost a sister early, and my father did pass, 17 years old. So aside from some of those less than desirable circumstances which can arrive, again, as a product of being human.
So when you were a teenager at Chandler High School?
Yeah.
Who was Jason then? And then what did Jason see for Jason's life then?
Yeah, I could equate myself to really just following my nose from one moment to the next. I didn't look out too far beyond the horizon as a teenager. I had thoughts that a lot of my life had already been planned out. I was a baseball player. I was an athlete. I was good, in fact. Good enough to have been drafted to play professionally. And so a lot of this stuff was baked into my mind when I was 14, 15 years old. You get better, more people start crowding around you, feeding you the information of what it is you're doing, how it is you're supposed to be doing it. And I didn't pay enough attention to myself at the time to realize that most of the life I was leading was likely initiated from other people's intentions. I didn't have my own intentions, my own purpose. I enjoyed probably too much appeasing and pleasing others. So I was, again, not looking too far beyond the horizon as to what it is I'm going to do. I really wasn't building characteristics. I was doing what I thought any kid should be doing. I probably experienced with too much alcohol and drug abuse. I underachieved in school. Used a lot of the talent I had. I was a very talented young kid, which was the main ingredient for me being drafted to go play professionally in baseball.
Who were you drafted by?
Cincinnati Reds.
You played in the minors?
No, so I had withdrawn from signing the contract and went to play junior college baseball. Again, these were all decisions of just riding along the path of least resistance. That was the goal. I didn't really see work. Nobody told me, like, hey, life's going to be hard. You gotta do these works. You gotta develop a routine. None of this stuff was introduced. My father was a single father. My mother, with whom I spent time with regularly in and out, nothing was laid out for me, as far as I was concerned, as how to organize a mature life. My dad had expected me to be a baseball player, so he had me practicing baseball. And that was it. That really was. I mean, anything that would resemble in today's day and age, if in fact any of my actions or words represent anything organized or routine or successful, a lot of that has to do with the product of me being in the Marine Corps for 9 years and absorbing what military life has to offer.
Well, that's interesting. We'll get into the military.
And I'll be honest, I could genuinely feel like two separate lives, like leading up to the point before I stood on the yellow footprints as a Marine, like to become a Marine. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue. I genuinely was like the dog going to chase the ball. I was just chasing shiny things with no purpose, no intention, with really no way to measure feedback. I was just going. If I was hungry, I ate. If I was tired, I slept. And that was it. There was no mind overcoming body or environment or anything. It was just simply stimulus response. Stimulus response. That is it. And then somehow that plinkoed way of living. You ever see Price is Right?
Yes.
You watch that show, Bob Barker, right? You ever see the game where they got the people at the top, they're all excited, like, woo, this is so much fun. They're going to drop it like a little plate, a little plinko is what it's called. And then just like plinkos, it hits and bops, and the thing's an inanimate object. It's literally just responding to the physics of the universe and just bing, bang, and booming its way until it either lands in you win or you lose. Uh-huh. All right? The person at the top has no command over the outcome other than just let go and let's see what happens. I was the plinko, just falling wherever I may. If I happened to fall on a good day, life was good. If I happened to fall on a bad day, life was bad. That was life for likely the first 23 years of my life.
Now, why didn't you sign the contract with the Cincinnati Reds? Was that
too hard? It was a commitment. It was a commitment. My dad had passed away the year leading up to me being drafted. Right before my senior year, father passed away, right? And with him, a lot of my love for baseball. Again, I was playing baseball as a product of dad saying, hey, you should play baseball. Right? And though this guy was talented, right? Why not? Hey, you can do this, make a lot of money. It's easy. Okay, easy, a lot of money, talented. I'm already getting, I think we may have had this conversation before. It was so easy because anything you would ever want in life, I had it. Well, I was accepted by my peers. I was admired to some extent in newspaper articles. I had what people would call a successful life without doing anything other than existing. And like I said, sniffing my way from one moment to the next, following my senses, just feeling around, right? Without knowing how to deal with it, with how to deal with success, how to manage it. It was a recipe for disaster, which is what life was for me between the ages of 17 and 20. Like once I got out of high school to the point at which I joined the Marine Corps, I didn't have the skills, the tools to negotiate with life in sensible terms whatsoever. So it's hard. It really is tough to answer questions about, what was life like growing up. I was like anybody else who doesn't pay attention. Like anybody else. I had as much capacity to create outcomes as my cat has the capacity to ensure I go to Walmart and get the food and then put the food in its bowl and make sure it's fed. Like I was just waiting around to be fed. That was it. When I was a Plinko, I would just sit there and watch TV and watch the Plinko go down because I had no motives. The Plinko has no motives. The Plinko doesn't care where it lands. The Plinko just lands. Moving to San Francisco from not just Phoenix, Arizona, but the suburbs, Chandler, Arizona, to San Francisco, California, that is a drastic change in environment. And I was somewhat shell-shocked when I moved there because everything was so raw. Like here in Arizona, we do our best to hide our homeless. We keep the streets like clean. Everybody's doing their best just to keep the appearance that, hey, everything's okay here. But San Francisco, everything was out in the open. People were not pleased about the way the world was working. You heard about it. You don't hear about it here. People go to the streets in San Francisco. You're going to hear about stuff. People are hungry in the world. You're going to find out about it because you're going to walk by hungry people in San Francisco. I learned, that you mentioned Buddha often. It's like the story of Buddha. Right? He lives in his kingdom, a palace. Everything's given unto him. Life's perfect. He walks outside the palace on day one. He's like, oh my goodness. You can't ignore it. Once it's revealed to you, you can't ignore it. It's there. That reality of the world mixed with the 2001 to 2003 state of the world with the post 9/11 era and the height of the war, which was coupled with the height of the anti-war party, just collided into a very fascinating scenario through my lens, the lens through which I was looking at it. Curiosity was the main, it was the galvanizing component, if you will, to get me into the Marine Corps. Just curious as to what's really happening out there. That was it. I was curious as anybody. You see it on TV, young kids marching into battle, willing to give their life for that. And then on the other hand, you've got people willing to just interrupt society against it. And huge opposing ideas on different sides. And so to get an honest account, I found there's only one way to do it. One way to really know what's going on, right? And that's to do it. To go in there and just do it and see what happens. And I wanted to do it. I read some interesting books about the military. I was very intrigued by special operations. The Navy SEALs. I watching those as a kid, playing with GI Joe. I mean, so many things. I can't. I mean, the more we'll talk about this, there's so many things that led to me joining the Marine Corps. It probably started, you could say it started when I was born. I think I was James Bond running around my house with my finger gun.
You mentioned growing up, your reactions, your reactions to the world determined what you did. Do you think that's the case for all of us? Do you think we're all a product of our environment, and most of us don't think? We just react most of the time?
I wouldn't. I believe that's the case because science already suggests 90 to 95% of our actions, our thoughts, our feelings, and our emotions are just similar to a program humming on the hard drive. And you got to look at it. From the time you're born, you're already given a template. Right? Genetics are real. You've got proclivities. You're going to have blonde hair, blue eyes, dependent upon your lineage. Right? So out of the gate, you've got proclivities about you over which you have zero control. Where were you born?
I was born in Baltimore, Maryland.
Baltimore, you had zero control over that. Right. You didn't. That was not a conscious choice, was it? I don't think.
I don't believe so.
No. So right out of the gate, you're dealt a huge deck of cards, genes. I don't know. There's 30,000 plus for it. They're exposing more and more, right? So you've got these cards you're dealt. You're not undealt them. You're given a deck of cards, and out of the gate, you're not going to be choosing whether or not you like chocolate or vanilla. Right? Things are just happening, and what stimulates the mind and brings an appealing sensation of pleasure does it. You unfortunately aren't choosing it, and so that happens for a long time, for a very long time. Some neurologists and neurobiologists suggest, conscious thought doesn't really come into play until 1-2 years into life. Some say, it doesn't really happen until words start framing. I don't know per se, but people smarter than me have said, hey, we're not really even managing the controls to any degree, even as it relates to what we're thinking. Until you've been doing stuff for years. So right there you've got a laundry list of characteristics of which you have no command or control over. And you're thrust into an environment which you have little to no control over. And for at least the first 1, 2, 3 years, you're at the mercy of your environment. Science has shown that those are some very formative years with how physical, and now we can talk about what's metaphysical and intangible and what's physical, but with a thinking brain, it's a physical property, and how the blood flows in which directions into what localized functioning areas that blood flows. These are physical properties that do have an impact upon one's mind and experience in their conscious moments. So by the time you're even aware that you can see yourself in the mirror, oh, there's me, and you can consciously know that you're hungry and try to relay that to somebody in a signaling. Before that's even happened, a lot of very deep programming into how you are, into what you think, into how you feel has been implanted into you. You've had zero choices at this point. You're still just trying to get fed the basics. Now, at some point, the idea that you could do something about the nature of things becomes an idea. Now, whether or not people do anything about that, it becomes challenging, and even more so nowadays, because there are so many things available in our external present moment that it becomes more challenging to investigate anything that's going on internally in the present moment.
So many distractions.
Yes, and so I think that it's the distractions that, I mean, you ask, hey, how many people are kind of on that? The way you were, or at least the way you felt leading into the Marine Corps, where you were asleep. I felt just like the dimmer switch on the inside of my mind was just put down to a minimum. I'd have to imagine a lot of people are running on that same low frequency hard drive of a mind due to the amount of distractible forces in the world that can pull people away from meaningful content. There's so much meaningless content in the world to dumb you down and to put you to sleep that it's not just a challenge, but for a period of time, it become taboo to think about the way one thinks, right? And even today, getting into discussions with people about physical characteristics and how one looks, their waistline, their breast size, but how one thinks about themselves, that's nearly trespassing upon one's personal territory. Unless somebody's going to see a psychologist, a therapist, a psychiatrist you could prescribe, or a highly credentialed, I'll say westernized credentialed individual, idea of thinking about thoughts, managing one's thoughts, meditation, that domain of practice and study, people like to keep it in there. Everybody's got their own philosophy on it, right? Oh, I've got my own thoughts on that, right? Oh, well, you do that weird thinking, meditating, or breathing stuff, and keep watching commercials. But the thing is that it's hard to say. I mean, what's to say that I feel as though, like, maybe the idea for myself that I've had some level of enlightenment as compared to how I thought about things and myself in the past. It's arguable. I don't agree with this. I really don't. I think at some point I'm able to embed some commands into myself that are far removed from simple external stimuli. But it's arguable that even the illuminating of one's mind and the path of one becoming enlightened could be nothing more than that, a product of stimulus response. And it just so happens that even through the course of seemingly free choice, that the idea there, the feeling of that free choice, again, is just nothing more than the interplay of your environment, and then what, again, this is a very materialistic viewpoint that people have, that you are nothing more than the computer being programmed by the environment, and then you just run back and forth with that game until the universe explodes. So that is a very still on the debate table today. I believe people have that focus. I don't. I firmly believe that there is some level of command I have about the outcome of my own life.
Well, let's get back to the Marines. So you went into the Marines. I'm sure it wasn't what you expected completely. You probably were quite shocked in many ways. What was your initial reaction to being in the Marines?
It's awesome. It's tough to say. I really let go of everything. I tell people, I let go. I quit. Right?
Quit what?
I quit trying. I quit control. I quit trying to manage my own life. Couldn't do it. I relinquished control, and I gave that control to the Marine Corps. Right? So nothing was shocking. I was open to this is the beginning, I guess, of me becoming aware of myself. I believe it's magical standing on those yellow footprints, or it doesn't have to be a Marine Corps yellow footprint, because that's what they're called when you get sent to the Marine Corps recruiting depot. You got these little yellow footprints, and you get off the bus, and everybody's got to stand on the footprints, and it's the beginning of your indoctrination, right? And I was open. I let go. I wasn't going to be shocked by it. I was like water in boot camp. This is like Bruce Lee says, right? Just be like water, my friend. That was me in the Marine Corps. I had no bearing, zero bearing whatsoever. And that was something that had to be exported out of me. It had to. And that was tough, because at times where a lot of young recruits would be crying, shitting themselves. There's one guy shit himself like every day. It was like this thing to do. I'm going to shit myself today. Really. It was
because of the physical demands, or just because he was so freaked out?
Well, for him, he did it one day, and then the drone. And you had to ask permission to do anything. Yeah. All right, see, let me talk about boot camp. All right, you mind if I talk about it?
Of course, please.
And this is why it's so powerful. You're stripped of everything. Everything. Yeah, that's why I said I had to let go, and I did. When I signed my name and I got on that bus, I let go. You're stripped of your clothes, your belongings. They take your name from you. Okay, your name. You're no longer a human. You're not a self. You're gone. You call yourself this recruit. That's your name. You don't say I. You don't say me. You don't say mine. You do not exist. The removal of your name, the removal of your identity, is the beginning of learning who you are, I think. And I had to go through Marine Corps boot camps to realize this. So everything's taken from you. You have no name. You have no possessions. You now need to ask, right? Ask. You need something, ask. You need something, ask. How often does that happen in the world today?
Not in our culture. You need something, you want something, you just get it.
You
buy
want
it. Right, yeah.
You want something. If you need something in this world, a lot of the times you're told to internalize it, right? You shouldn't have wants, you shouldn't have needs, who do you think you are? Get out there and go work for it, right? If anything. So a sense of community, right? You're stripped of everything. And all you have is each other, right? So with regard to the recruits, right? These little recruits.
So you called yourself this recruit.
This recruit.
You didn't just say, Jason, you say this recruit.
And this is exactly why the kid I was talking about shit his pants every day. So this young kid, he didn't get it. Right? He didn't get it. So anytime he would ask for something, he would start like, this recruit requests permission to speak. Because first, before you ask for something, you got to ask permission to speak. You need to be granted permission to even say something. This recruit requests permission to speak. About 50% of the time, you don't get a response. You're just ignored. Eventually, a drill instructor will impolitely say something like, what the fuck do you want? What is it? What is it? And this guy would say, this recruit requests permission to make a head call. And then the drill instructors would always ask, is it number one or number two? And they wouldn't let anybody take a shit. No number twos were allowed. I don't know why. It was just like, nope, you're not going. He'd always ask to go shit. They never let him. People caught on like, I'm just going to say, I gotta go number one, I'm going to go there and take a shit. Right? He never caught it. And so eventually the drill instructors not enjoyed, but they made it a thing. Like, this dude's going to crap his pants every day. And he did. Just about. Just about.
How did he do his stuff with that? How would he manage that? That just seems very odd to me.
Welcome to life, Rich.
Welcome to life.
Life of the Marine Corps boot camp exposes you to overcoming a lot of life's adversities, such as running through the desert with shit in your pants. Right? It wasn't easy. You learn. That's what I'm saying. You're stripped of everything. You have no but you got to get to the end. And this is the beautiful thing. This is you can learn all of life's lessons in 90 days of boot camp. On the 5th day of boot camp, you've been processed. You've completed your in processing, and you're ready to meet your drill instructors after 5 days of being there. You haven't gotten a lot of sleep, and they're not really physically hard on you at this point. They're just processing you. They're really getting their hooks deep into you as a human, and then administratively speaking. And then you meet your drill instructors, and they usher you into this big auditorium. And they got the drill instructors from the company, and then they've got your company commanding officer. I think it was a captain. It's some captain, red-headed captain, I remember. And he has a great speech, the best speech I've ever heard in my entire life. He's saying, I know a lot of you guys are thinking you don't want to be here anymore. I'm thinking, no, I don't. This sucks. This is the worst fucking place ever. But I'm here. I'm loving it. He's like the duality of man, right? The worst place ever. I love it. But there were kids that were absolutely terrified. Kids that were already like writing to their mothers like, hey, you need to contact Mothers of America and get me the fuck out of here. He says, and this is the truest shit, and this is so true in life. He's like, you guys are here. You've made the decision, he says. You've made the choice. This was your choice. You volunteer, and you're here. And then he says some oorah stuff about our country and God and everything. And he says, I just want to show you guys that want out of here more than you do. I'm going to show you 5 guys that want to be out of this place more than you do. And they're willing to do anything for it. He said, these guys are willing to fake it, willing to break their own leg. They're willing to even commit suicide, to attempt suicide to get out of this place. And he brings them out. And so we're like, gee, this one guy's got a cast on his knee. All these guys just staring off into space. 1,000-yard stare, all these guys, right? For good cause. They've been at boot camp for 200 days, 300 days, some of them. One guy's been there for a year and a month. This is a 90-day boot camp, right? Since day 1, day 2, or day 3, these guys have been trying to get out. Right? They've been maligning themselves. I can't do it today. No. Call my mom, please. Let me know. Anything but boot camp. They keep you there. They're not going to let you go. They're going to adapt to you. They want you to adapt, right? Because anytime if somebody washes out, the Marine Corps looks at it as a failure on their part. Hey, we didn't train that guy right. What did we do wrong? That's the Marine way. We don't think like, oh, that guy's an idiot. He's fucked up. No, it's what could we have done better? This is what's so beautiful about the Marine Corps. And I'm sure the other armed forces, the branches are like this, but I can only speak intelligently, half intelligently at least, on the Marine Corps. So we don't want you to go. We want to do our job and shape and mold and construct Marines. That's why you're here, right? So these guys have been here for years, right? And the guy says, not years, but over a year, one of the guys. The CO says, if you want out of here, you want out of this place, the fastest way out to graduate. The fastest way out of here is to get to the end. The fastest way out is to finish. 90 days, you'll be out of here. Okay? Sold. Decisions. Right? You want out? Get to the finish. Get to the end. That's where you'll get your respite. That's where you'll get your recovery. And you'll feel a whole lot better about it. Well, I mean, you've read a lot. You know a little bit about suffering, right? Anything else is equitable to suffering. Question. If you're not moving forward through the decision, because you made the decision, and I guess we could talk a lot about the word decision, right? Very, very precise with regard to it cuts through the mind, right? Incision, it's very sharp. When you're doing what you can to escape that decision, you were really dragging yourself through some sufferable space in mind. And so that on the 5th day of Marine Corps boot camp, I had already been, some good mental software was uploaded onto this brain. It's just fascinating how much 90 days can do to a human. I have a hard time even thinking of myself prior to Marine Corps boot camp and who I was and what I was and how I was. It's not even worth thinking about. Not. And I don't discount what I did and how I did it, but what led up to it, but I don't feel as though anything I did prior to that was really a product of my doing. Yeah, I mean, that's how profound an impact the Marine Corps boot camp, just those first 90 days is all I've gotten into this. And it is some righteous stuff.
I know that getting into special forces in any military division is very difficult, but from what I understand, the special forces in the Marine Corps is particularly challenging. Can you describe that process and how you ended up there?
Yeah, easy. So I'm kind of put on offer here just a good landscape of the special operations community, because there's a lot of misnomers and the phrases and words people use to describe special operations, and the entities that comprise of special operations are often misused and misconstrued. In fact, when you say special forces, that is specific to the Army Special Forces. The Army has a Special Force unit. They got Special Forces groups. They're the Special Forces. Now, the Special Forces falls under Special Operations Command. Right, now, Special Operations Command is what comprises of all Special Operations units, to include Navy SEALs, Army Special Forces, the Air Force, paratroopers, and other radio communication operators. And then you have the Marine Corps, and now what is known as the MARSOC. Prior to 2007, the Marine Corps did not have a Special Operations unit. I could actually be more historically accurate. There was, in 2003, a test unit known as the 1st Detachment, or Det 1, was created. But well known for the darker side of things, Colonel had put together a group of guys in the Marine Corps and labeled them Det 1. And they were detached from the Marine Corps, and they worked specifically for the Special Operations Command. And so this was a very off-the-books type thing that was going on for the Marine Corps. But these Marine guys were doing special operations missions, getting some special operations pay, and living the special operator life. However, they never, I don't think even until now, have gotten any credit for it. Zero, in fact. I don't think there's even a book written about it. There should be. So that happened in 2003, and that was to help bolster the special operations effort going on in Iraq, which Iraq and Afghanistan really were a special operations style war on the front end. It got a little more conventional over time, but it was, in my estimation, the special operations units just did a lot of the heavy lifting on the front end of those two wars. When MARSOC became what it is today, that was about 2007. I was working for Force Recon at the time. Force Recon is still in existence today. Force Recon does a lot of the maritime strike forces for the Marine Corps. They're what's known as Special Operations Capable. They carry out missions from the Special Operations Unit, but they're able to do missions that fall in line with Special Ops style missions. So doing that, our unit was literally just blessed into the special operations community. I went from working in 4th Platoon, 1st Force Reconnaissance Company. This is on a Tuesday. On Wednesday, I went to work in Alpha Company, 1st Marine Corps Special Operations Battalion. And it happened that fast. that fast. And that was around August of 2007. Right, is when I literally became a special operator. It was known then as a critical skills operator, is what the MARSOC operators were like. The Navy's got the SEALs, the Army's got special forces operators, the Marine Corps had critical skills operators. We're now known as Raiders, Marine Corps Raider, and there's a lot of history behind that. We don't need to get into it. So that was 2007, August. Now, to get to that point is a real motherfucker in the Marine Corps. All right, it's a real son of a bitch. I've already talked a little bit about 90 days of Marine Corps boot camp. I became an infantry Marine. I was an 0311, a rifleman, which is just your conventional forces door kicker, your grunt, all right? Guy running in the gunfire on Fox 10 News, all right? Right after boot camp, you do your rifleman skills, which is another 6 to 8 weeks of learning how to handle yourself in a gunfight, how to patrol and do all that stuff. And then, in order to become a recon Marine, you have to go through the recon training. You have to pass the recon assessment, which sucks. And you have to go to what's known as RIP, which is the Recon Indoc Platoon, which is another 3 to 4 weeks of just consecutive hell weeks. And it's designed just to weed everybody out. Once you've graduated on through that, you're eventually able to go to the basic reconnaissance course, which is a 3-month course where you learn all of the reconnaissance skills, observation, how to communicate, how to set up radio communication devices, how to shoot better, anything that a recon Marine could do. 3 months of your life is dedicated to learning how to do it. And then, finally, guys can go out and attend the MARSOC assessment and selection, and then the individual training course, and spend another 6 to 9 months of their life learning to become a special operator in the Marine Corps.
That's every 7 days a week training.
5 days a week, usually.
5 days a week.
Yeah, the boot camp, 7 days a week, 90 straight days. Then when you graduate through that, you do your individual training as a grunt or whatever. You got 5 days a week there. There's some weekends you work, but it's nothing too crazy. It really does become like a job. It really is. You're not... Schedule is demanding, but it's not too demanding. I've always had felt it was worth the exchange of compensation I got. Yeah, so that's kind of how I arrived in special operations. I felt I had great timing. I got in the Marine Corps at a really good time. I had some luck go my way. A lot of the stuff that happens in the Marine Corps with regards to where you get sent is dependent upon your last name. Like if A through, things like A through K, and then L through whatever, like, you guys are going to the East Coast, right? And then like, hey, you guys are going to the West Coast. It's something as little as me being in another group, like, next could have completely trajected my Marine Corps career into less desirable places. But it didn't. And so the timing of me falling into a Force Recon platoon, right when that Force Recon platoon was turning into the Marine Corps Special Operations Company, that's a pretty fortuitous place and time to be. And then from there, it was dream, man. Living the dream of a superhero.
How so?
Well, you imagine playing a video game, opening up a brand new game. It's the coolest game ever. It's what do they call it, role player game? The objective of the game is to acquire as many skills, and then to, in as many ways as you can, apply those skills for good. And then you're just given, the opportunity to go acquire skills. The menu sheet, in fact, when you talk about that, but then once you've acquired said skills, you're now handed opportunities in the form of deployments, and then you go and create missions to put those skills to use. You can't beat that. These skills aren't, Word, Excel, learning how to do PowerPoint presentations. These skills are not some of the more remedial, even some of the more used skills in today's day and age to, bolster businesses or whatever. But you're learning fun skills. Yeah, you do learn how to hack into computers. Yes, you do learn how to pick locks. You do learn how to set up technical surveillance systems and foreign languages. It's limitless. Shooting packages, martial arts, skydiving, scuba diving, explosives, how to build explosive out of household appliances or household goods. It just goes on and on and on. Survival skills, navigation skills. It's really fascinating. And every school you go to, every new skill you learn, it's a software upgrade for the brain. You learn not just what you learned at the school with regard to that specific skill, but all of the principles and all the fundamentals that are involved in that skill, you can apply in other aspects of your life. Very simple. Martial arts is a great example. When you use stuff like judo, just with regard to gaining entry, it's a form of communication. And you could use a lot of the skills you learn. Again, the principles just carry over so well. Once you pay attention to it, you're learning so many languages.
So you ended up in Afghanistan.
Yeah, well, I did a deployment in Iraq in 2004, 2005. That was cool. It was a really, really interesting experience. That was
when things were getting really bad.
Yeah, I was a conventional grunt working with the 1st Battalion.
Really getting bad.
It was a very hairy place to be. Ramadi, Iraq, in 2005 was a shithole. It really was. But you learn a lot. It was great. I had fallen in love with. I wouldn't say I fell in love with combat, but in that combative experience, I fell in love with mission-oriented living. Nothing beats it. Like I said, you do the skills, you do the tactics, techniques, procedures here. Then when you go into combat, everything you do every day has a purpose. And that purpose is, first and foremost, to keep your ass alive. You better take it seriously, right? But you're also there to do impactful things. And this is history. What was going on in Iraq and what is going on, it's kids are going to be reading about this in history books or on their computers in over centuries in time. This is a very huge thing. And so to be in that, I couldn't help but just feel compelled just to move forward and take on that mission style of living. And that's where I began constructing my body, constructing my mind, building as a spiritual center. All this happened in war for me.
Well, how does violence play in that?
Violence is a part of the game. And I think for those who can't separate violence in war from the violence you would see carried out in... I would say this way. I would look at war as a very high-stakes MMA, very high-stakes football. That's just the way I looked at it. This is a game with tactics, techniques, there's procedures, there's fundamentals. Right? There's plays you don't want to make. There's things you don't want to do. And so long as you used the mechanical variables, that you stayed in line with those mechanical principles, you were just more likely and highly probable to come out successful. It doesn't happen every time. One of the best gunfighters I know, some of the greatest warriors I know, didn't make it. It's a high risk. Again, it's a very high risk game. I looked at it as a game. People say it's superficial, that's shallow, but that's the only way.
That's how you dealt with it.
Anything else. Well, it's not emotional. Right? I can get emotional. I can get into it. Like, I want to do well and I want to succeed. And we've got, but I can't look at another guy across the firing line who's got his AK-47 pointed at me. I can't look at him as just another guy trying to live his life. He's got a family to feed. He's a guy on the field of battle doing what he's been trained to do in an effort, and from their case, I think, in a hope that they can do it better than we're trained to do it, which is not really ever the case for those guys, at least not in the situations I've been in. But it's a game, man. It's a game, and you practice that game. You get good at the game because it's a high stakes game.
So it's a zero-sum game.
It depends on what level you're down. Well, it depends on what level you're playing at. All right, it really depends. At my level, there were days where it was zero sum. There were days when it wasn't. you can really wrap yourself and lose sleep over looking at it any other way.
We'll get into Afghanistan here shortly. Did you suffer any post-traumatic stress at all?
No.
None?
Oh, man, the worst.
Do you think because you approached it with the game theory?
I would say the post-traumatic stress that I did sense was just when I got out, losing the sense of brotherhood. Not being, in the, I guess, there's a really good special on HBO. They followed around Brett Favre, I think, and a couple of the football players who, for all intents and purposes, should be living a pretty cavalier life after a Hall of Fame NFL career. And they talk about, what is it about these guys? That Brett Favre retires, comes back. It's not even the game. It's not the winning. It's not the money. It's the sense of being, right? I was traumatized that I wasn't going to have the impact that I would have in a village in Kabul. That's what was traumatic for me when I got out.
So for many people, Westerners, that's a very odd thing to say. You're stuck in some village in Kabul, poverty, war-stricken, can't make the impact here that you could there. That's interesting.
Well, no, I guess that may have been part of my trauma, was that idea or the belief that I couldn't make the impact here that I could make there. It was that I was so used to making it.
I see. Such a part of your routine.
It was just a part of my day. Here I got to work harder at it. We're not in a country of ruins here. You have to really achieve at a high level in America if you want to make an impact. Not to say that what I was doing in Kabul or Kandahar wasn't high achievement. It was a different way of doing it, just a completely different way. So getting out and realizing I got to kind of start over at day one, right? I got back on the yellow footprints, except now I'm in the civilian. I've done my time in the Marine Corps. Now I'm back into civilian world. That was even harder than going into the Marine Corps boot camp.
That's it.
So it's just food for thought. That was the most traumatic piece.
Why do you think so many of these guys now, the suicide rate so high? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you got to first do the math. You got to look at what's high, right, as compared to what. That number 22 military members and vets commit suicide a day. There's a lot of military members and vets. There's a lot. And I'm not trying to diminish what's going on or take away from a pretty big, I think it's a movement, and a good movement, because guys do need help. Guys do need a lot of help. It tarnishes the reputation and it tarnishes the credibility of our branches of service when we are appealing to less than good data in order to support somebody else's motivation.
So you think that this being known, do you think there's a political objective to that?
I do. I think that there, for a while, there was a subversive anti-military, and there still is. I can understand people's perspective for being against a military at all. I wish we didn't have to have a military. It'd be great if everybody could just put their guns down and go make sandcastles every day. All right? But that's not the case. So I think, and from what I've understood and looking at this particular situation, that numbers get skewed very easily. There's ways to prop up certain numbers in order to, again, appeal to people's sensitive side in order to push an agenda. Now, with that said, I'm all for healing. I want zero people. I want zero veterans to take their lives. But there's nothing that branches of service aren't doing right now within their power that they could do in order to keep that from happening, I think, at the rate that it's happening.
So you think it's zeitgeist, it's the spirit of the times. Somebody has an agenda, they're skewing the numbers.
if you want to help veterans, there's better things to focus on. There's just way better things to focus on than identifying that these guys, that there are up to 22 veterans that do take their lives every day. And then again, I don't want to diminish it. And I may sound like I'm like playing that thing down, but it's to get to people you want to present a morbid idea, right? You want to push morbidity out there. That's what the media does. The word kill, the word suicide, it draws attention. So people want to use that for a reason. And I personally don't like it. I think there's some other things that we could focus on that you can help propagate a better tone when you're talking about anything. So I feel the same way about when people talk about cancer and putting more money into cancer and anti-cancer and going out and fighting cancer. Why don't you just talk about living a better life? Right. Why don't you talk about what can be done to live a better life? And I realize that people out there have cancer. I realize there's less than fortunate circumstances. But I think that these are huge movements that I don't know, a lot of times I don't think they make people feel any better about the situation.
Well, here's how our brain works. What's focal to focus becomes important.
Exactly.
So if you focus on cancer, you're going to get more cancer.
Exactly.
If you focus on suicide, you're going to get more suicide.
Exactly.
You focus on what you want, not what you don't want. Yeah. Now, that's hard to do because our brain is wired for survival. We are automatically attuned instantly. Anything that may be a threat to our survival.
Any organism is designed by design to survive and reproduce. Now, the brain just so happens to be the most complex form of putting that survival aspect and reproduction aspect. It's so far the most complex form of it. It's not outside. I'm happy you brought that up because you see the same thing with, I think school shootings was a big deal. All right, there's a school shooting, and you're like, oh, how horrible. Let's get the word out about these school shootings. Is it no surprise that shortly after the first one, we had the second, the third, the fourth? It became like a monthly deal. Why? Because you put it out there, and you're like, hey, here's a behavior available to everybody. Give it a shot. Go explore it. Here's the deal. If you want to fight cancer, why don't we eradicate that which gives cancer? Yeah. But why don't we do that?
Right.
Why doesn't Coca-Cola do that instead of putting on another cancer walk? Why don't they stop selling cancer products?
That's an interesting proposition.
It goes on. It goes round and round. So, to be honest with you, Rich, I try to stay the hell away from this shit.
I haven't drank soda in years.
Yeah, just with these, you bring up the suicide rate. These types of things aggravate me to think that, if you watch your Facebook feed and to see the how many people are doing the 22 push-ups things.
I don't know what that is.
They do 22 push-ups to represent that 22 veterans have killed themselves.
Oh, okay.
If I'm a veteran, and I am, right, and I've been on the bottom rungs, like I got out and I've gone through some depressive times, if I go onto Facebook and I see just, some soccer mom Sally who just wants to get her daily fix in, hey, everybody, look at me doing 22 push-ups because I support, that is not going to, turn it around for the dude who's got an AK-47 in his mouth. That's not going to turn it around. That's what I'm saying. Get on board with something that's got traction. I talk to vets every day that not every day, but regularly I talk to guys that are having a hard time on the outside. They tell me that's not really a big help, 22 push-ups. It's a good way to help some people feel good about themselves. I don't take that away. Go do a 5K walk. Put a ribbon on your shirt and then go have cocktails afterwards and tell everybody how great you are. Congratulations. That's not doing it. it's sad occurrence that anybody, right, especially veterans, and 22 of them a day are being sacrificed. But do something different. Do something about it. Don't fucking talk about it. If you're going to talk about it, then do something about it. I don't know what I talk with my buddies. I think I do some stuff from time to time, but I'm not on the frontiers of that fight. I'm not. I didn't do the Facebook thing. And if you look on Facebook, you'll see that there's people doing push-ups for this shit. And that you have to call out your friend. It was like the ice bucket challenge.
Oh, okay.
So you see what I'm saying here? There's another one.
Not get away from an important topic, but
yeah, you get me on a high horse over here.
From what I know of you, your arc in a story, in my story of you, is when you were in Afghanistan, and then you decided to go from what you were doing to being an interpreter. Is that correct?
I was not an interpreter. I was just an operator. Critical skills operator with a language skill.
But that's kind of what you did.
I was able to interpret. I did some interpretation, but most of what I was doing was engaging with the population, engaging with my small force that I would build. I would get embedded into small Afghan special forces teams. I would help train them, and then we'd go out and fight with them. So most of the language stuff I was using was with my Afghan team. So it would be myself, maybe one other operator like myself, and then a lot of Afghans going out to hunt Taliban. So that's how I would use my language the most.
But didn't you? I remember you telling me one time a story that you noticed that there's this communication barrier because not many people spoke Pashtun, right?
Oh.
Is it Pashtun?
Pashtun, yeah.
Pashtun. Most of the people that were there didn't speak the language, so you did.
Yeah.
How did you learn?
It was uncommon that the big tall white guy speaks Pashtun. There's a lot of Afghans, in fact, that don't speak Pashtun. And I did. It's a fascinating language in that it's the mother language of Afghanistan. And the Pashtuns are fascinating people, in fact, very tribal. Long history, successful history. They claim that they've never been defeated in war. They're still trying to make that claim today in Afghanistan. And they did a good job. We armed them to the teeth, and they defeated the Russians for us. So the language itself is lovely. Now, I learned it because it's the primary language that the Taliban speaks. I had the option to go towards Dari, which is the second language of Afghanistan, but it's more commercial, very commerce, and dignitaries speak Dari a lot. It's a pretty language, very similar to Farsi. And Pashto is a little more guttural. It's even pronounced Pashto in various parts of the country. And I was drawn to it because, hey, I'd probably be dealing with a lot of Taliban in Afghanistan. I want to know what the fuck they're saying, so I'll learn that language. I did. And
how did you learn it? Did the Marines train you?
Yeah, man. It was the greatest year of my life, in fact. We, myself and one other guy elected to do Pashto. We had these two really cute Pashto gals from Afghanistan teach us how to do it. So it was one-on-one instruction. No kidding, like two hot medical students. So I wasn't not interested, right? If I didn't give a shit about Pashto, I definitely gave a shit about who was teaching it to me. So it was easy. It was great. So I spent 6 months in immersion every day. You get up. It was a good schedule. It was on Camp Pendleton. So it was lovely. I wake up on the beach, 15-minute drive to work, get in at like 8 in the morning, unconventional for military time. Stay there till 8 to 2. I was just doing language. And I did a lot of work on my own time. This stuff you invest in, right? So I go home and live my life, do my stuff. But between the hours of like 6 p.m. and 10 p.m., I was back on the grind, reading Voice of America News, Afghan Pashto, listening to YouTube videos, going through. Because, again, it's competition, man. Everything in the Marine Corps is competition, right? Everything you're doing. So if I'm in the class with another guy, well, I want to win, damn it, right? I want to be the best Pashto speaker around. So I studied the shit out of that. For 6 months, you're just doing classroom work. At the 6-month mark, they take you out for 3 weeks of immersion. So we did local immersion. So we did some work on military installations where they have realistic training. So they have a bunch of role players there, real Afghans there. And we'd go in and chat with them. We'd be part of the scenarios for other units doing their training. It was really cool, actually, because everywhere we'd go, again, white guy, and we'd start growing our beard out just to kind of, what beard do you see I have? I got a baby face, but we'd grow out from time to time. We'd be working with conventional forces Marines. It'd be like me and 2 other dudes from our unit, plain clothes, beard, but we'd have American gear on, our high-speed gear. These guys and then they'd hear us speak in posture. They're like, who the fuck are these guys out here? We don't have to stand in formation and get rained on, and they just do whatever they want. It's kind of funny that, you got all these other Marines. But it was kind of it was like a look into a former life, in fact. But that's how we did the 6-month mark. We went in, did some immersion training, and then went back into the classroom for 6 more months. And then you are considered by Department of Defense an advanced linguist. Well, so long as you test out. You got to test at these varying levels. You got different levels that they grade you on. And so I did very good. In fact, we're pretty high on what's known as your language aptitude test. I forget what they're called these days. There's like 2 different versions. But yeah, did that, and I was a language dude, man. Yeah, you go overseas, nobody speaks the language, and so communication's a big deal, right? Communication. When people aren't speaking the same language, it's very easy for one person to think the other person is just a dumbass. Right? He doesn't say what I'm saying, doesn't get what I'm saying, it's idiot. And this was a common occurrence in Afghanistan with the American military and then the Afghan military whom we were training. So I think you're talking about the story where you had these 2 Marines, American Marines, trying to huddle these Afghans into a formation. And the Afghans kind of know what's going on because they're like, hey, I'm sure they want us to be doing something like this, but they don't know specifically what these Marines are saying. The Marines are giving them like pretty detailed instruction. And so at one point the Marines get fed up and they're saying, well, these Afghans have no idea what's going on. They're idiots. They usually call them monkeys, which is derogatory. And then the Afghans say, well, these fucking guys don't know what the hell they're doing. They're idiots. And I'm sitting here and I'm listening to that conversation in Pasco saying these guys are idiots. Listening to this conversation in English saying these guys are idiots. It just hit me. It was like, wow, what a world we live in. That right there is like the story of the human life.
Because we can't communicate.
You just can't get on the same page. And 99 times out of 100, like the Afghans, they wanted to do what the guys were telling them to do. That's why they're there. Like, we want to kind of help, right? And the Marines don't really have any real ill. They're not really assholes. They're not mean. They're just frustrated dudes on the other side of the world, and their girlfriends on the other side of the world. They're just trying to get stuff together. And it's just that. That's it.
Are people all the same around the world?
Well,
from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we're all run with a pretty robust human central nervous system. What's there to be experienced through human emotion. And yeah, I think at our basic level, there's certain commonalities. We want to survive. We want to live. We want to socialize. We're social beings, right? We want to tell our story, like what's going on here, I guess. And that's it. It's really that simple. It is. Now, again, it's simple. Life could be that simple, but we do have very complex brains, and that's about as basic as we get. Because while the hardware is the same, it's really the software that's driving the behavior and driving. Yeah. I mean, so if we were all to just be exposed to the same experiences, exposed to the same ideas growing up as young humans, there'd be a lot more similarities in the world. And someone say, well, that'd be pretty damn boring, wouldn't it?
Well, yes, but genetics would still play a part to a certain degree.
Yeah, no question. I mean, we've got a pretty wide pool of genetic functions available, and that's important. People should get on board with that too, because I know I'm in the fitness industry, and I don't think people pay too much attention to their genetics and not enough attention to their genetics, meaning they'll blame their weight gain, they'll blame their inability to lose weight on genetics, but then they won't tailor their lifestyle to their genetics.
Yeah. You can't eat your way to a healthy.
Right? So it's like, oh, well, I just pack on carbs like it's crazy. Well, then why don't you get on board with the low-carb diet, right?
Yeah, right.
Put the cookie down for the day. And it is challenging. People, like most people, aren't aware of body types, and they should be feeding and moving themselves according to their body type. 3 specific body types, right? And they're just, it's tough because there's so much information, but my ability to experience a wider set of sensations and emotions and feelings grew exponentially when I learned a foreign language.
Is it because of posture, or is it because you learned another language?
Well, because I had learned another language. Now, because I had learned posture, I think I had taken on those particular set of sensibilities accompanied with the psychology of one who speaks posture. Make sense?
So you were more like becoming like an Afghanistan.
More like an Afghan, like
Afghan.
a Pashtun. So
because you learned the language. That's
because
interesting.
I had learned the language, you could almost say that with within the one's origin language, there's emotional code writ into that language.
That's very interesting.
Because there are words, like the word Pashtunwale, for instance. This is a fascinating word. And if you ever heard of No Man, or was it Lone Survivor? This is the movie Mark Wahlberg played the guy. So he was taken in by a village of Pashtuns. And what led that particular village elder to give treatment and care and protection to that Navy SEAL was the code of Pashtunwale. And this is actually what I used to get through to a lot of Afghans who I couldn't really connect with, or who had a hard time motivating, is I would use Pashtunwale, which is, there's no English term for it. It's like you take courage, bravery, initiative, humility, compassion, and you take these words and you bundle them into one thing. That is Pashtunwale. So you learn about these things and it fills gaps. That makes sense. Where at one point you didn't have the lexicon, you didn't have the framing pieces, the words, right? The pieces to assemble a structure of thought, the right structure of thought that could lead to a feelable sensation or emotion. And when you learn a new language, that language now gives you new pieces to assemble different frameworks of thought. And now with that different framework of thought, you now have a new style of emotions that emerge from that. So I didn't even think about this until you just brought that up. That is very fascinating. And so yes, the way one does experience time, for instance, that's why the term a New York minute comes up. Things happen fast. People talk fast. People go fast. People move fast. Well, if you have a conversation in, say, Uruzgan, Afghanistan, this is northern Afghanistan, nothing's happening fast up there. And to be honest with you, there's a fascinating term in all of Arabic, Inshallah, right? If God wills it, which means we're not waiting for anything. We're not necessarily reaching or hurrying towards anything. God wills it. That was tough too, because dude would show up 2 hours late to meetings and 3 hours late to meetings and shit. You're like, dude, you're supposed to be here. It's like 1 o'clock, and everybody's Inshallah.
Yeah. Well, that didn't fly too well in the U.S.,
right? It doesn't. So now imagine, just if you can for a moment, imagine what happens when you're thinking now no longer like yourself. And this is, I've been reading I follow a guy, I read a lot of his books, Joe Dispenza. He's a chiropractor, but he's turned neurobiologist, neurologist, and he's one of these new age mysticism guys. He's really into meditation. He's got some good hard sciences to support his stuff, but he's always talking about a new mind and how you need to lose your mind if you ever want change in your life. And this kind of supports Einstein's wonderful phrase, right? You're not going to solve the problem with the same mind that got you into the problem. It's not going to happen. That's why it's funny when you're always trying to figure something out. Have you ever tried figure out, I'm going to work so hard and somehow these series of thoughts are going to somehow just arrive me at that ultimate problem solving thought? Now, when has that ever worked out, right? So rearranging your language functions in your brain does, as you very well know, it causes physical changes at the level of the brain, which is going to create new pathways of energy and blood flow through the brain, which is going to create new thoughts, new sensations, and new experience within the conscious mind. The language is probably the doorway into all of that, to some extent.
When you left the military, went into personal training?
Yeah, so...
What? That's a...
Yeah, I did. I went into commercial real estate. So I thought I'd make a lot of money doing commercial real estate, and it sucked. I hated it. Well, I mean, it was a good job. It really is, and there's a lot of fortune to be made there. I wasn't ready to make good, solid change, and it was a big leap from doing what I was doing in the Marine Corps to being behind a desk and making calls and trying to sell office space. Right. So that didn't last. I think it lasted about 18 months, but about 12 months into that, I got a job at Orange Theory Fitness doing group fitness training, which came really naturally. And it also, I had gone through my years of being a critical skills operator. I went through some fascinating athletic mentorship and instruction at the Athletes Performance Institute, which is the most fascinating place to learn about health, fitness, and wellness. I was lucky enough to go there, and for free on a $15,000 scholarship donated by the Marine Corps, I went and learned anything anybody could ever learn about how to advance human performance. Didn't even use that information. I used it a little bit on myself going through the Marine Corps and just constructing the version of myself you see today. But I didn't realize how much I had learned until I started to use it at Orange Theory Fitness. So I did that, and people really responded well to my style of training. They responded well to how I communicated. And I started doing it more. It got me out in front of people. It got me decent prominence in the community, I think, and it's been really good since. I still do some work with Orange Theory, but a lot of what I do is coaching and teaching people how to think clear and move free, and it's great.
So what led you to started this company called Neuro Creamer? What is Neuro Creamer, and why would I put it in my coffee?
Question, I guess. Well, we're all problem solvers, and I think my whole life I've been trying to just solve my own problems. And at one point, with Neuro Creamer, I think I developed a way to make money on solving a pretty good problem I was having, which was I am very much into human performance, as you know, and so I fuel my body with as many vitamins, minerals, and nutrients as I can. And along with just keeping, a well-sustained and maintained physical body, I've come to appreciate my brain health as well. So in studying the more efficable brain nutrients out there, testing them out, working based upon research, reading articles, I thought, at least I believe, that we've assembled a good cocktail, a good mixture of several what are known as neurotropics, which are vitamins, minerals, and nutrients specific to how your brain functions. I put those in my coffee. And I had been using this natural, organic, not a creamer, but a medium chain triglyceride, which is a fat-based creamer with a little bit of monk fruit in the sweetener thing. And so I blended these 4 nutrients that help facilitate brain function, especially at the cortical regions of the brain, and then mix it with this high-fat creamer. I'm a high-fat nutrition guy, good quality fats. Medium chain triglycerides are the best fats out there. I put it in my coffee, and it tasted great, and it worked, lo and behold. On me, at least, it worked. So I started telling my friends about it, and eventually people started saying, I'm tired of buying all these different products, and I'm tired of scooping one thing out of this and into that, and then I'm done with it, dude. I love it, but I'm not doing it anymore. And that was the time when Neuro Creamer came into my brain.
Something you developed on your own.
I thought about it, and then a guy with whom I had done a lot of business with, great business mind, my buddy Justin. I came to him with it. He's great at getting businesses started. So he and I started doing a lot of the groundwork, the legwork for it. Now here we are today with a Neuro Creamer on my counter.
How do I, if I wanted to buy some or try it, how do I do that?
Neurocreamer.com. And the name of the company is Nuclear Naturals, called Nuclear Naturals. And we're likely to have more problem-solving products out here soon as we keep solving our own problems. But right now, that the coffee creamer is the way to go with regard to that. It's
a why coffee creamer? And if I just do that once a day, is that really going to have an impact on me?
Indeed. Yeah, these are nutrients that have been classified by other health organizations, i.e. Sweden, Canada, Australia, England. In fact, these are essential nutrients, which are not readily available in the Western diet, in the American diet. They're just not. People are not getting these nutrients. You'd have to eat a bucket of lettuce to get the amount of alpha GPC we're getting in a tablespoon of Neuro Creamer. And what that does is it really strengthens your synaptic receivers, strengthens the signals that goes on at the neurological level, helps with memory, focus, clarity of thought, helps advance neuromuscular facilitation to the point at which it takes a thought to turn into an action. These are measurable effects. These are in a lab being tested on humans as we speak.
These things cross the blood-brain.
Yes, indeed, absolutely.
Where much that we eat does not cross that.
We found an ingredient that we put in Neurocreamer called huperzine A. It's from the plant Huperzine serratus. It's found mostly in China. This is literally giving rise to neurogenesis, the recreation of brain cells, at 100 micrograms a serving. I mean, this is, one a day. This is what people are taking to combat neurodegenerative disorders right now. Unfortunately, those are the only people who have their brains on offer to be studied for the most part, are those with Parkinson's and other forms of dementia, Alzheimer's. There's measurable production, measurable positive effects taking effect on brains worldwide. And for me, I was just thinking, well, if it's doing so well to help with the degeneration of how a brain functions, I wonder what it could do on a healthy brain. And doctors are researching this now, and I've been testing it on myself and those close to me now for 2 years, and it's irrefutable. You can't deny it. It's happening. And the same way that, caffeine does augment metabolism, as it is, it's a real stimulant, and it can be tested. It works, right? It doesn't not work. Same way that food, helps with hunger. Vitamin C helps with immune function. It's help with brain function, and they're available. People just don't know about it. And I think, again, what we talked about before, the brain's a very taboo space. What goes on behind the eyes and between the ears is sacred territory for people.
Through that lesson so far in your life, what would you say is the biggest lesson?
Wow, I never give up. That's actually, I think, a Navy SEAL term, but never give up. That's it. It's that the human mind is the deepest ocean available. And just because the part you may happen to be in the present moment isn't giving rise to pleasure, isn't giving rise to that which feel good, so much more territory to explore. And I think that we do explore the darker, less desirable territories of mind and space. It allows us to give better meaning as to why to be good at all. And so, give up. If you give up on that, if you give up in a dark space, because they're there, I think we've all experienced them. And I mean, I've even felt as though I've given up. Like I said, when I joined the Marine Corps, there's different forms of giving up, right? I joined the Marine Corps, I kind of gave up in a certain way, but I guess never give up on that version of yourself and who you believe you could be, man, because it's there. It's there. The first 23 years of my life prior to the Marine Corps, there were I could just, the flickers of that version of myself would emerge in my brain from time to time. And that was enough for me. Knowing that version was out there, that quality of myself could exist, that was it. I got to see that through. I got to attain that. And I just never give up. I'm not there, but I'm not ever going to give up on it. Never.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you again for listening. And please leave any comments or suggestions. We're always looking for ways to improve our show and make it the best show it can possibly be. Visit mindfulaccord.com, where you can find additional episodes and you can follow our blog. We give some helpful information on mindfulness, meditation, and just ways to manage our everyday stressful lives. And most importantly, if you know of a friend or a family member that would benefit from this story, please share it with them. Until next time, I'm Rich Decker.